Your shirts.
Oh, yeah, sorry, sorry. Sure, my attendance looks a lot better. Welcome, we're very glad to have you here, Mayor Mclean. We can call this meeting to order now. We can take attendance.
Yes, hello, roll call, starting with Bowen.
Present.
Pryor,
Here.
Donahue,
Here.
Elliott, Furrer, Myers,
Here.
Nowacki,
Here.
Pengilly,
Here.
and Raber.
Here.
Sorry.
Great.
Drive you crazy.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Chloe. We've got the new business today. The first item on the agenda are the minutes from our December 1st, 2021 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Any questions, corrections, additions? Is there a motion to approve the minutes? I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. The minutes are approved. Thank you, everybody. Next, we will turn to Mayor Lauren Mclean, who's joining us today. Thank you very much for being here. It's very exciting for us.
Thank you for having me. You know, I was talking to Sarah and Doug before Christmas, and you know, there are so many commissions that I actually haven't been able to come and see directly because it's hybrid for so long, and then as we've transitioned back, it just hasn't gotten scheduled. So it's really exciting for me to be here and to see you all. Those of you that are in the room face to face, and then thank you to those of you for your service too that have called in. So I appreciate the time. And I wanted to come and talk and give you an update really on some of our priorities and how they connect with the Open Space Committee. But thank you for including pathways and that connection that I think is really important from our farmland to our foothills as part of within your conservation criteria. And as we've launched our pathways master plan, because you know, we've got council members Clegg and Halliburton that are really interested in expanding access along the canals. But I too, it's a priority of mine because I see it as I mentioned before, that way to make investments related to open space and ultimately clean water throughout our community and to connect those folks from the farmlands all the way into the foothills that we've invested in, the green belts along the way, and to create those open spaces, natural areas, really transportation corridors in some ways, as we reimagine what open space and parks look like in our city. And that plan that was just finalized, you know, right now we have 50 miles in our city of access along canals, and our goal is to pretty much triple that because the plan calls for another 110 or 111 miles of pathways easements that we believe that we can acquire for our residents. And that plan also calls in the priorities that you all have set in terms of your conservation criteria, so it gives a nod to that, especially in regards to the importance of open space. And then also our climate action plan, we've made sure integrates with your climate conservation criteria, by again focusing on preservation of additional and existing open spaces, by looking at the importance of a return to natural areas and preservation of natural areas, and then the impact that that has on climate, whether it be fire buffers and public health in the long run, clean air and opportunity, to what's the word from a science perspective? Well, I'm just gonna say plant trees and put natural plants back in the ground. And that's a big part of our climate action plan, but then also our commitment to the American Beautiful initiative to set aside and protect clean water and open spaces, to increase citizen engagement when it comes to protecting our environment, protecting our open space, clean water, and of course mitigating for climate, and then restoring or protecting existing natural areas within our parks and seeking as many opportunities to create those natural spaces within the green spaces that we're creating for our residents. And all of that combined, I think, so closely aligns to the priorities that you've established that now will be really complemented by your interest in including pathways in the criteria, because this levy is an important funding source. We'll seek additional funding elsewhere, but it creates that carrot, if you will, to find additional funding to be able to make good on a rather bold vision that our pathways committee, our council, and my office and our city, quite frankly, has when it comes to preserving and granting access to our folks. So just wanted to touch on some of that, but then also just spend a little bit of time with you and thank you for the good work and the incredible opportunities that you brought to us in the last couple of years to secure this case.
Madam Chair, if anyone has questions, I think now's a good time to ask the mayor.
Questions, feedback, you can tell me whatever you want right now.
When you think about like the kinds of projects or the sorts of investments that you'd like to see made with the levy funds, what do you sort of envision?
Sure. Well, one, I'd say that I also think that, so there's types of projects, the language is clear, it's clean water, open space. So, and the public around the city supports it. So I really want to see investments made as often as possible citywide as we seek to secure open space. And that's why I think that that nexus with the pathways committee is so incredibly important. Because folks in West Boise, folks in South Boise supported the levy that made it possible for this commission then to have the resources to set aside open space and to protect our clean water. And as we look at land becoming more and more difficult to acquire, as we tend to grow up as a city and grow together, having that kind of the linear parks, if you will, the open spaces, green spaces throughout the community are really important to me. And I think they're important for the community. But then the other thing I'd say is that we've tried to find clean water projects, and we've also committed through American the Beautiful for by 2030 to have invested $30 million in open space and clean water. And so there'll be opportunity as we move forward to have the public say yet again that this is important, and then to really figure out how to nail that clean water piece. But I do see pathways also as that kind of access along the water, it connects to the river eventually. How do we do that? And then it's important to the public that as land and access negotiate become more constrained, we spend that money, right? They made the investment in 2015. Each of us made the investment in 2015. And we've done great with it. The opportunities as our city grows just get tougher to find. And so I would really like to see if you will, the final steps to secure land with those funds that our residents entrusted us with so many years ago.
And Madam Chair, committee members, the mayor has asked our Department of Parks and Recreation to take the lead on implementing the results of the Pathways Plan. And so we're going through the process right now of identifying some of the key priority connections that the committee identified and looking at how we could implement the strategy of the plan, take that back to the mayor to take a look at what our recommendations are and moving that forward. And so some of that is it'll be improving pathways, the connection itself. If there is a current connection, for example, along a canalway, or creating a new pathway that will create a connection according to the priority of the plan. And if it's a canal, there's not only improving the pathway, but you have to look at fencing, and you also have to look at potential for easements. So as we start digging into this, it is going to be a plan that's going to take some time to implement. Because there'll be a lot of negotiation that will have to occur to create this robust connectivity that the mayor is speaking of. I think the next step would be maybe to bring to you at some point here in the future, maybe a quick presentation on the priorities, the plan, kind of what we're looking at. We'll be presenting to the mayor and her chief of staff. I think it's even next week possibly, on where we're at right now with next steps in moving that forward. Then I think it'd be a great idea to bring that to the committee and have you take a look at and have you look at poke some holes in it, take a look at some of the things we're planning on doing. But it'll be similar, very similar. It's become almost eerie, similar to the Greenbelt. In that there's a lot of landowners that have property within the priority recommendations of the pathway committee. So there is going to be easement requirements, purchasing of land potentially to pull off the connectivity, which is nothing new to us. We just celebrated our 50-year anniversary of the Greenbelt 3 years ago. So I think those of you that recall that, there was a lot of work that went in that 50-year period, including the last connection, which is just under a mile, that connects Maine over to Americana. And that connection took almost 3 years to get solidified, and about $3.5 million of easements and construction costs. So having said all that, I think that what we're doing with levy funding per the mayor's direction is very important in how this moves forward. So we will get it on the books to come back and have some discussion with the committee on what that plan looks like moving forward.
Superintendent Howard, have you guys met with some of the canal companies and the Boise Project Water Control?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Craig, yes, we have. And we actually have someone assigned in our Public Works Department that is working closely with all the irrigators. And so, and you all know from conversations we've had here, there's, it's a group that is, that sometimes can be tough to work with because they're very protective of their liability along their waterways. And that totally makes sense. But we do have some great relationships with a number of those, and we're going to be leveraging those in looking at some of those priorities that the Pathways Committee has come up with on how we can start actually picking off some of the low-hanging fruit that would create some really vital connections within the community, working closely with the irrigation companies. But it is going to be a challenge, and getting easements, commission members, isn't easy to do. And so, but what's exciting about it is when we look at the network, and I think that's what we can bring to you and show how this connects the community, it's pretty robust. And I think a great direction to go, in not only connecting parks through the pathway system, but potential new open space opportunities throughout the community as well. And it's a transportation corridor, just like the Greenbelt. And so wherever we can even match up connections that would get folks to the Greenbelt is a huge benefit to our community.
They even took me on a ditch riding afternoon. I even got to do a ditch riding afternoon. It was super fun, just to be in the truck and go down all these canal passages I normally wouldn't get to drive on in the car. And really see it from a different perspective as we talked about how we could partner to acquire public access and easements for our residents.
You get a totally different view of Boise. It's pretty interesting.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, well, thank you very much for being here. I'm personally really excited about the Pathways project. There's just a lot of traffic there already. I think people use it a lot, and so to kind of institutionalize that, I think will be really, really beneficial. So I'm really excited that you're excited about it and have put a lot of work and energy into it. So thank you for that.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Well, Mayor Mclean, directed to you. Is there anything that we could do as committee members or to encourage, friends, family, other people that are excited about that project to help them move forward?
That's a great question. I appreciate it. Once the committee has worked with parks to come up with those priorities, and you all have seen it, and we're going to share that, of course, with council as well as they weigh in, engaging the public on, there's not an action take, right? But engaging the public, letting them know that this is some of what we're going to be doing, and then encouraging them to support us along the way is always great. And then we took a ton of feedback during the Pathways plan, so there were opportunities for the public to do surveys, to show up at parks, and talk about what they wanted to see. But we're always collecting information. So as committee members with your reaches into the community, as you're talking about this opportunity that we have, if you're hearing suggestions or you know that people want to share suggestions, they should reach out and continue to be part of that dialogue about what the priorities are. But I would imagine the plan's online, so I bet Sarah or someone could share the link.
Yeah, we have shared it, it was part of our discussion when we updated the criteria. Hopefully, we all took a look at it, but I'm happy to send it out again if that's necessary.
And that was the result of a lot of community engagement. Even during COVID, I attended the first kickoff public information session. It was right after the shut. I think if I remember correctly, it was like early summer, right after the shutdown. It might have even been the first gathering that we had where like, it was one of the, those days where we were all in a circle but super spread out in the park, still wearing masks, not sure like how to do this right. And our planning team through PDS was there, great community engagement and number of people that showed up to have the conversation and remain engaged. And that was just the start of what ultimately became the plan that you all have seen. Well, thank you all for your time and service to our city and for your stewardship of this special fund and the incredible assets that it's created for all of us and for those that are behind us. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for your support of the committee and the like.
You're welcome to stay with us if you'd like that, Amanda, but we understand we need to.
Oh, I could stay for a little bit. This was shorter than I expected, so yeah, I'll stay for at least the next.
We have an improvement.
Yeah, I want to hear about these next things.
Feel free to check out whenever you need.
Great, thank you all.
That sounds great. I'm glad you can stay for a while. All right, the next item on the agenda is the improvement project application from the City of Boise and Boise State University.
So would you like me to provide an overview?
I would, thank you very much.
Committee members, this application we originally discussed last fall. And at that time, there was a lot of questions. We only had a very, small quorum. And I believe it was committee member from Gilly who asked that we bring it back when we have a full committee. And in that time, we have taken the time to revisit the conservation criteria based on the initiatives and strategic efforts that have began and since 2017. And so I think we're all maybe a little bit better informed on how we should approach discussions with regard to this improvement project. Very briefly, a reminder, hopefully you had a chance to look through the application again for today, but this is a partnership project that is proposed between the City of Boise Public Works and Parks and BSU to try and get a better understanding about how shrub ecosystems sequester carbon in the soil. There's good science out there to help us understand how trees sequester carbon and how ag land sequesters carbon, but there's not a very good sort of number that we can use as an example for how most of our open spaces are offering climate mitigation through carbon sequestration. So I see that Dr. Mariana Groff is on the call with us. Hello. Steve Hubble's also here. And my hope today would be that you all can have a good discussion. I will take extensive notes if there's questions that need follow-up. But if we can get to a recommendation today, I think that would be ideal. If not, that's fine. But given that this is the second time that the committee will have the opportunity to review the proposal, I would like to try and push towards a recommendation if we can have that, but obviously that's up to you. So with that, I think I'd like to open it up, chairperson, to discussion amongst committee members. Like I said, I'll take questions and then if we can address them in the meeting, that's great. If not, I can follow up with Dr. Brown.
Yeah, I've got a question. Thank you very much for that. I guess I looked at the revised project. It was really helpful. Maybe if somebody could give just a summary about kind of the key things that shifted from the original project to the revised project, if there were kind of like where there might have been significant changes, that would be helpful.
Sure. Madam Chair, committee members, I think I can try that, and then Martha can correct me if I am mistaken. Great. My understanding is we honed in on the match a little bit more specifically so that it was clear that Boise State and the match that Boise State was providing went towards staffing, and the funding that the city would be providing would be going towards deliverables. I also understand that Public Works was able to increase their contribution to the project. Is there anything I'm missing?
No, the language is loose about the contribution, but Public Works might hypothetically be able to increase our match on their end. So Steve might be able to speak to that, but I don't have a specific number.
Steve, I don't know if you can hear us. Oh, great, okay.
I can chair committee members just quickly. We had initially committed to a $10,000 match. We haven't honed in on a specific amount above that, but now that our subsequent year budget funding is kicked in, we may be able to supplement that a little bit based on the outcome of the process. So certainly willing to continue those discussions with Commissioner Arkell, Martha, and the others as necessary.
But to your point, Madam Chair, and Mariana, I would look for agreement from you here. The bones of the project is the same. It was just a matter of sort of making sure it was clear for committee members what city funds would be going towards.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you very much. Any questions? Any questions from?
Yes, one quick question. What is the likelihood that we would be able to take advantage of that TA ship and that $24,000 savings that would come along with it? It's mentioned on after the potential place to reduce costs on page 22.
Yeah, I can chime in here. So I'm the graduate coordinator for the biology department at Boise State. And so if we are able to provide a little bit of funding to a student to achieve part of this project, it is very likely that Boise State University will match those funds with a TA line to support the student. So I think we have a high possibility of making this happen. I just can't say it, I can't say it's 100% possibility, but I think there's a high possibility to make this work.
And Madam Chair, Patty, that's a great question. And what the committee has done in previous years when we don't have a specific target because project implementation may influence costs is provide a recommendation for approval for funds up to a certain amount. So that's something the committee could consider if that's the direction you want to move.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? I feel like I see interest over here.
No.
Well, I guess my question is back, but one of my original questions I had is who's going to own the results of this project, the intellectual property? Is it going to be owned by the city? Is it city money, or would it be the university, or it might be going for Rob? I don't know if he's involved in that. I've dealt with other universities where that has become a stumbling block as to who's actually going to own the intellectual property.
Dr. DeGroff, I don't know if you could hear that, but
I could not hear this question. I'm sorry.
Committee member Pengilly was asking about the basically would there be any barriers to having this information be shared publicly through the BS?
No, we are required to share our data publicly. So any grant that we write a data management sharing plan. And so we will absolutely have these data publicly available. Yes.
So Madam Chair, that can be added into the final agreement before we.
Oh, correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So as a reminder, and for those of you who are sort of new to our committee, you make a recommendation, it gets taken to the mayor and council for consideration. Should they recommend moving forward, then I go back and work with the applicant to create an agreement that then goes to council for approval. And that agreement would stipulate details such as who owns the information and how, you know, billing will be handled and who's the project manager and all that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
One additional question. How long would this data be relevant before it would need to be re-updated? I'm just curious about the shelf life of it.
Dr. DeGraff?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you. So what we are planning on doing is collecting a whole bunch of samples from different areas that have different types of vegetation in them. And what we do then is we can understand how different types of vegetation impact the amount of carbon that sits in the soil. And then we work with a modeler who then is able to model how vegetation is linked to soil carbon. So if we know how to do this, which I know we can do because we've done it in previous projects, we can actually then take these same principles and model into the future. So once we have the original data, we can continue to model it. And that's actually a very relatively simple component. It's not nearly as time intensive. We really just need those first data to get the baseline, the foundation, and then we can use that to quantify into the future. And it'll really give us an understanding of how different restoration projects to get sagebrush back, for example, or to plant other types of vegetation, how that will impact soil carbon into the future. Even with changes in climate, we'll be able to model it into the future if, you know, it gets drier or wetter or warmer.
Madam Chair, if I can just add one point of context, because I think what Dr. DeGraff mentioned about utilizing kind of baseline data to step, you know, more and more information on top of so we can make better management decisions. When we first started as a committee, we didn't have a habitat map of all of our reserves. And Martha worked with a consulting firm to make sure that we had a good idea of what the habitat was across all of the properties that we own and manage, so that we could pinpoint restoration projects based on data. And to me, this is like the next sort of 2.0 version of that effort, is to try and understand not only where should we be targeting restoration projects based on habitat characteristics, but where should we be targeting restoration based on climate.
Yeah, thank you, Patty. That was a great question. And thank you, Dr. DeGrassi. I think I can't quite see the end of your name on the on the Zoom. Okay, I tried. Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this project. I think that it's going to be, really interesting. I think it's kind of a really important keystone for us to be able to make really good informed decisions about restoration of foothills. I sort of think that our residents are going to expect this from us, to be able to answer questions like this as climate change, continues to impact us more and more. It's also not a very expensive project, especially in terms of all the levy funds that remain, and it's difficult to buy real estate in a way that wasn't true certainly 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago. So I'm really excited about this project. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
I have a comment. I think your study design is really good. I mean, it looks like you've controlled for everything and you're taking everything into consideration to give you data. So that's good.
Do we need any other discussion? Does the committee feel comfortable moving forward with the recommendation? Do we feel comfortable taking a vote?
Sure.
So Madam Chair, you asked for a motion.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion to recommend that this project be funded by the City Council?
I'll make a motion to recommend that we fund this by the City Council.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just for, just so I can, make sure that we're bringing a motion that fits within some of the discussion that we've had. I would suggest that you consider making a motion that would include that potential TA shift. If it comes to fruition based on a further approval from council. So you may want to word it specifically.
Maybe someone else wants to make this correctly.
That's why I like not making motions.
Madam Chair, if I heard you correctly, it's including what Pete's concern is.
And that, and also, I would say, my suggestion would be that the committee consider a motion that would recommend funding the project in total, including potential opportunities for additional match and project improvements. The data piece, I'm fully confident does not need to be a part of the motion. I think we can work that out in the agreement. I just want to make sure that what we bring to council includes this sort of option for that TA shift. Because it sounds like it would be very beneficial to the project. Am I correct, Mariana?
Yes, sorry, I cannot hear everything you guys are saying. But you are mentioning the TA ship and how it would be very, yeah, it would be essential to the project, actually.
So let's ensure that this is the number. So you make a motion to just include, the TA ship. So the recommend.
That'd be great.
Madam Chair, no, you're good. I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to recommend moving forward with this project, including the TA shift. I recommend that.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Do we need to put the dollar amount in the motion?
I don't think so. I think since it's in the application, we should be fine.
Good question. Any other discussion?
So just to be clear, it's in entirety, 109,000.
So, Madam Chair, including the TA shift, the city's match total contribution would be approximately 105,450.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is that a not to exceed?
You could include that if you wanted to. I don't think it's necessary if you say, you know, fund the project that is in the application. I would, at that point, I feel like I would need to come back to you for any
Right,
additional
yeah.
approvals. Anyway, so.
That's what I was hoping.
Just one here.
Got it.
So we have a motion, we have a second, Madam Chair. Chloe, I believe for a vote, we need a roll call, correct?
Why not? Let's do it. All right, Bowen. Aye. Crier.
Aye.
Donahue.
Yes.
Elliott. Ferrer. Myers.
Yes.
Nowacki.
Yes.
Pengilly.
Yes.
And Rayber.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Chloe. The motion passes. Thank you all very much. I'm really, really excited about this. And thank you to the very good work of Sarah and Doug on this. It's been, and everybody from the city in the room. And on Zoom, thank you very much for. I know.
Working.
I might be able to see you through Zoom better, actually. Anyway, thank you for the very good work on this project. I'm really, really excited about it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
So Madam Chair, we do have executive session for this meeting, and I will, I don't have any committee updates that I need that time for executive session.
Okay, that sounds great. We'll move into executive session.
I'm gonna leave before you do that. Can I take a picture?
They would love that.
Just stay where you're at, actually, so I was like, oh, I should just do it. Would you want me to take a picture? No, yeah, do it like that. Okay. Oh, yeah, right there. I think I can see, yeah, I can see everybody in it. Smile. 1, 2, 3.
Smile.
Smile, you need
Smile with your eyes.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thanks, ma'am.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully it's an exciting topic in executive session.
You are well aware of it. Okay, so who would like to read the fund?
Sometimes it's because we're just.
Pursuing
So,
time.
Committee chair will call for a motion for.
Take care, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And your co-chair there, your committee vice president, call for a motion.
Yeah, I'll call for a motion. It looks like you're dying to read it, so that's great. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So
Is there a second?
I motion.
All right.
Okay, executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-206, subparagraph 1, section C, to acquire any property which is not owned by a public agency in Idaho Code.
Section.
To communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but imminently likely to be litigated.
Now second.
All right, one more roll call. Bowen,
Aye.
Crier, Donahue,
Yes.
Elliott, for Myers,
Yeah.
Nowacki,
yes.
Pengelly,
Yes.
and Rayber. Thanks for your dedication joining from mid-flight.
Second.
Thank you, Pete.
Silence is
No, thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Pete.
Wait, because I'm just thinking of all this
Well,
stuff
let us exit.
now.
Let us exit. This, do we need anything else to do? Chloe, to exit executive session? I can't
Other
remember.
than she needs to do a roll call.
Yeah.
Yep, we'll do one more. I keep saying that. Bowen,
Yes.
Crier,
Yes.
Donahue,
Yes.
Elliott, for Myers,
No.
Nowacki,
Yes.
Pengelly,
Yes.
and Rayber.
Yes.
Perfect.
Madam Chair, Committee Member Myers, we can either reopen the meeting, close the meeting and have a discussion and answer your questions afterwards. How would you like to do this?
Oh, sorry, I was just thinking about the IBO project. They're gonna want some money. Remember that?
I do, of course I do. I speak with them almost weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think, Madam Chair, that any questions you have, we can take
Oh, let's do it
offline.
offline.
Yeah, with Sarah. And she can answer any questions you
Okay.
have and kind of
No,
elaborate.
yeah, it's okay. My wheels are just kind of going. Wow.
No worries, that's a
Like
good
the
thing.
bucket's empty.
It's a good
Wow,
thing.
really?
Okay,
Yeah.
so now we need a motion to end the meeting.
I'll make a motion to end the meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.